I feel like everyone is like on this constant chase to make their digital photos look like film. And I could be a pretentious film photographer and say, just shoot film, which by the way, just shoot film. But I promised my mom I would be nicer. So instead, I made a video explaining exactly why your digital photos will never look like film. There are several factors and reasons as to why film looks the way it does and digital looks the way it does. But there's one big thing that people forget to mention and talk about. That one big thing is the reason why you can't make your digital photos look like film. Let me explain. Now, saying your digital photos will never look like film may be a little dramatic, especially when you have photo editing wizards like Cam Mackey or Forrest Makins, who actually get really close to a filmic look and are really good at replicating that style. However, if you have a trained eye and you've been doing this for a while, usually you can tell. Let's see if you can tell right here. Now, I don't claim to be the best photo editor ever. That's actually probably the biggest reason why I shoot film, is so I don't have to edit photos. But I did try my best to match these up in terms of matching the digital to the film photos as best as I could. I used both Lightroom and Capture One to really dial these in the best I could. But again, I don't claim to be the best photo editor ever. There's tons more people out there who could probably do this better. So please don't attack me about how bad I am at editing photos. Now, before I reveal my deep dark secret as to why your digital photos will never look like film, I'm going to show you just a few more photo sets just to see if you can quite pick up on the difference that I'm talking about. But mostly because I need to improve my retention rate. Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, you're in the exact same boat that I was, because it took me years to figure this out. I was constantly trying to edit my photos to look like film and just could not quite get it there. So that's when I realized that what really makes film film is this little thing called ambient tones. Ambient tones are colors that show up within your image because the ambient light within your scene in which you're shooting. Now, that's probably not the best explanation, so how about I just show you? Take this image for example. First thing that we notice right off the bat is the ambient blue we're getting in the trees. This halo-y, glowing effect that we're getting throughout the tree branches and stuff are all ambient blues from the scene. Of course, this was shot in blue hour, so we're going to get a lot of ambient blue. You can also see the ambient blue here in our socks, on the couch cushion, on top of the couch. Not so much in the skin tones, but even in the cigarette smoke here is picking up a lot of ambient blue from the scene. And then we have this photo here where this was a closer up of our subject, and we can actually see some of the ambient blue here in her face, right here on her cheeks, and then here on top of her head and the part of her hair. And then of course we're getting some ambient blue here on top of the couch. Of course, this was shot in a very ambient tone heavy scene, but you're starting to see one of the biggest and strongest characteristics of film, which is being able to pick up on these ambient tones and naturally place them throughout an image. Next, let's look at some examples that I took for this video. We can look at these images first. This is the film photo that I took. This was also pretty close to blue hour. This was kind of in between golden hour and blue hour. Lots of ambient blue here in the tops of the trees. Not really getting any in the skin tones, but the big one is here in her shirt. It's a white shirt, so it's going to reflect a lot of light. So therefore, it's going to reflect a lot of ambient tones. And if we look at the digital version of this photo, again, I don't claim to be the best photo editor ever. I tried to match these up the best I could. No ambient blue in her shirt at all. Nothing really in the treetops up here. You could make an argument that you could go into your highlights, your shadows, and kind of add that in yourself, or maybe even through like a brush tool. But in my experience, in my experimentation, it doesn't look nearly as natural. That's probably one of the most incredible things about film, is not only can it pick up on these ambient tones, but it can also place them naturally throughout your image. And then if we look at the before, straight out of camera, just completely neutralizes all ambience here in the scene. No ambient up here, no ambient tones in her shirt. And then of course with the edit, you get a little bit of ambience up here, but nothing compared to the film photo. This is just another photo from that same evening. This was shot literally right after the last shot we looked at. Lots of ambient blue in her shirt and the trees, and then we're starting to get some of that ambient blue here in her skin tones, on her forehead and on the top of her cheek. And then kind of same story. We're starting to get some ambient blue in our shirt. Again, it's a white shirt, so it's probably helping the digital out by reflecting so much light, but nowhere near the same as the film image in my opinion. And then straight out of camera is just completely lifeless. And lastly, really quickly, me and Emma took these photos inside that same evening. Our only light source was a lamp on the bedside table. Not too much going on here in terms of ambient tones, but something I want to point out is the lamp was tungsten, so you're going to get kind of like a yellowish cast. But the fact that we're getting some red ambience here in the pillow and up here on the wall, we're getting a nice, what I like to call color roll-off, where we're getting this nice gradient between colors. Something that film does a really good job of is handling the color palette itself and transitioning between colors. We're even getting some of that transition here in our skin where it's going from tungsten to more of a red. So we're getting some ambient red and oranges throughout this scene. And if we look at the digital, this digital isn't a bad matching. We have the same gradient towards the red ambience and the shadows, but it's not handled nearly as well, in my opinion. It's a lot more drastic, a lot more punchy, and not as natural, in my opinion. So again, not only picking up on ambient tones, but being able to handle the color transition between different colors is what really makes film so incredible. So, do ambient tones make that big of a deal? Well, maybe. Photography is an art form, and just like any other art form, it's subjective. And not only is art itself subjective, but opinions on art are also subjective. Just because I think one thing doesn't mean you have to think the same way. I think we get very caught up in thinking that everyone has to think the same way that we do. I personally think ambient tones make a very big difference in the comparison between film and digital. I can see it every time, but it's also one of those things that once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it. So it's probably not as big of a deal to people who aren't as aware of ambient tones as me. Now, are there also other factors as to why film looks the way it does and digital looks the way it does? Yes. Again, there are Photoshop and Lightroom wizards who can replicate the look very well. I've even gotten some pretty decent success in the past. If you look at these photos here, I think they match up to film really well. So at the end of the day, I feel like the digital versus film comparison game can get very tiresome and borderline idiotic, especially when you have people like me who pick out the tiniest and nitpickiest of things, such as ambient tones. So if there's a lesson to be learned, it is to stop taking people like me so seriously. This is just intended to be fun and entertaining and somewhat educational if you care about the differences between film and digital. But if you don't, then just shoot what you want, post what you want, edit what you want, and do what you want. Photography is fun. Photography is art. Art is subjective. Opinions are subjective. And we should just have more fun and less Twitter beef. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, would you mind clicking that red button at the bottom underneath this video? It would help me out a lot. It would help me make more videos in the future like this if you like these kind of videos. If you don't like these kind of videos, then maybe you could still press that red subscribe button, and you don't have to watch my videos. But if you just want to help someone out, a fellow creative, a fellow photographer, fellow artist, whatever you want to call me, it would be greatly appreciated. If you do like these videos, again, you could also hit the red button and you could hit the bell thingy. That way YouTube tells you when I post videos. And not only am I posting videos, but the rest of my friends here at Creative Club Chicago are also posting videos, and we have so many fun things planned for 2022 and cannot wait to share them with you guys. So with all that being said, I thank you so much, humbly, that you watch my videos, or at least watch this video, and I hope to see you in future videos. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.